Good afternoon, Wrestling Inc. Get up, get going. Happy Friday. I hope you are ready for some fun. It is me, your managing editor of WrestlingInc.com, Nick Hausman, joined here as I am every Friday to wrap up the week, talking all the top professional wrestling news. It's our good friend TKTrinidad. TK, welcome back to the Wrestling Inc. Daily.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's a fun Friday, and per TK's suggestion last week, we're gonna have some fun with some cocktails this Friday. TK, did you bring a cocktail or alcoholic beverage this week to the show?
Some rosé.
Ooh, beautiful. Love a rosé. I am a beer guy. Today's beer comes to us from the Rheingeist Cincinnati-made brewery. This beer is called Hustle. It is an IPA. Looks like it's baseball themed. And it's about, I think this is a 6.0% ABV. That is right on the money. That's exactly where I like an IPA to be, TK.
You've said a bunch of letters. I have no idea what you're talking about, but it sounds good.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. I had too many beers last night, wound up in the DMs of the Old Irving Brewery last night. Apologize to those gentlemen. Anyway, or ladies, who knows? I don't know who I was talking to. Cheers to everybody out there.
Salud.
All right, let's get into it. We got Jordan Awesome here. He's over on YouTube. He says, "Hi, Nick and TK, headlocked heel. What's up, everybody?" Ray Ann weighing in on some of the big news we're going to get to here in just a little bit. Wherever you're at, if you want to jump in, leave a comment. We'll throw it up on the screen. We'll try to talk about it as the show goes along here today. Later on, we'll dive into the mailbag. We're going to look at the WrestleMania Backlash card as it is. 4 matches announced. What are you on the hook for? But that's it. No interview today. So let's dive right in. It's time for news you can use. News that will leave a bruise. We're going to start off with the news from the Observer about Bret Hart. He's going to be in FTR's corner for a match for Big Time Wrestling show in Massachusetts. It's going to be FTR with Bret Hart in one corner against Brock Anderson and Brian Pillman with Arn Anderson in their corner. Now, the reason the FTR Bret pairing is happening on an indie show and not an AEW is that those in AEW are of the belief that Hart quietly signed a lucrative WWE deal that would ban him from appearing on AEW shows, but he is allowed to do indie shows. So that's the loophole. That's why it's happening. This also means they don't believe that Bret will be a part of the Owen Hart tournament presentation, and Hart himself has said he never, said he was invited to do that. So that's a bummer, right? That seems like a lost opportunity.
It is, but it's kind of like, do we know for sure? Or like Bret Hart just seems like the person that he's going to do what he wants to do. It doesn't really matter what certain promotions say. So one, if AEW never invited him, that was a big ball drop on their part for that. And then 2, why don't they just ask him? Like, I'm sure he can come out. I'm sure he'd have no problem coming out and saying, I'm signed with WWE, and everybody kind of knows what that means. There's kind of no crossover. So, the speculation and the allegedlys are just kind of flying a little bit, opposed to, he just seems like a guy that you could just ask and he can just
True.
tell you.
And it's like you were reading our email thread this morning, TK. We internally were saying the same thing. Like, why would you, if you're Dave Meltzer, don't you think you could find somebody in Bret's orbit to ask this question to? I know a few folks in Bret's orbit. I've tried this afternoon to get a definitive answer. I myself haven't yet. I am trying, though. I used to co-host Bret Hart's podcast, and I will tell you that most of what you're saying is right about Bret. He is very much a do what he want kind of guy. But, he is very family oriented as well. And I know that his wife has a lot of say in a lot of his dealings these days. And if it's better in the long run for the family to stay committed to a consistent high dollar WWE deal that keeps Bret away from AEW, where we've already seen him present the AEW world title. I'm sure Vince loved that. I have no doubt that there's probably maybe a little fire to this smoke here. I think that there's probably a good chance Bret did sign the Legends contract, took a big payout from WWE for having to do very, very little. I do believe. I think that's probably true.
Right. But again, why? I mean, it's not a bad thing. It's not like he's committing a crime. So, the Legends contract seems pretty lucrative. Yeah, it's unfortunate that there is that, they can't do as much with other bigger promotions, but they are allowed to do a lot of indie scene stuff. So I mean, if this is the loophole, then that's great. But it's just what's kind of sticking me is more like, I'm sure he would just say if he's signed to one, and
Sure.
it's just, it doesn't seem like it should be secretive. Like,
well, people are sticky about that stuff, especially in wrestling, because like the more mystery around you, the more intrigue you have, the more people are talking, the more you're selling shirts. So sometimes coming out and like putting that stuff to bed, you're ending the conversation, you're ending the speculation. Bret is a worker. That is very, very
right,
sure. So I'm not surprised there's like some fog around it. I'm with you. I think we should just know, right? But this
right,
seems to all line up, and it'll be great for the fans on the indies. I mean,
yeah.
Brett's certainly a draw, that's for sure.
And we have social media, so it's not like we're not going to see it. That's the great thing about being in the era that we are now. It's not like we have to pass around a tape that might take months to get to us. So it's we would hear about it instantly, and we would see it in some way, shape, or form.
Well, over in AEW world, half of Top Flight, Darius Martin, Fightful, reporting that he is injured again. He suffered a leg injury, back on the shelf. No time frame for when he's going to return. It was noted that he is expected to miss another lengthy period of time. And Dante was just in a 6-man tag. They took on Blackpool Combat Club on Dynamite? Am I getting this right? I think on Wednesday?
So, yeah.
With Lee Moriarty and Brock Anderson? Yeah, I think so. I was surprised. I was like, why is Dante Martin out there alone again? I really thought that I didn't know that Darius was injured. I was just very confused by it. This all makes sense now. Unfortunate. This guy just got back like a month ago from injury.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, injury is never fun, especially when you're, kind of trying to work to get to your peak. But I mean, there's really nothing to say. I mean, hopefully he's getting the care that he needs and can make a speedy recovery. But it's kind of one of those things where Chelsea Green is always injured. She's always like injuring her. Like, it's just kind of like injured. Some people get more injured more than others. So hopefully it's not going to be something consistent. But
sure,
take the time off.
Man, and Tony Khan, like he had just hyped up Darius coming back so much. And like before that, Dante was getting the singles push. I forget who it was recently that was talking about how they used Dante as an example of like somebody that was pushed really hard for like 3 weeks. Like Tony Khan loved him. They had him out in the scrum and everything. And they just kind of got shuffled back around, right? And the inconsistency in keeping these guys. His brother came back. I know they're going to push the tag and all that. So I don't know. I'm interested to see where they go with Dante. There's obviously an affinity there for him right now, but at least from Tony, but I don't know. There's just no consistency I've seen with him quite yet.
Yeah, I mean, they could definitely create some type of storyline. He has more than enough. I don't know the right words, clout to do something. It's just doing something amongst everybody else that's in the locker room.
Headlocked heel here saying robotic limbs are the way. Embrace the bot. Maybe
like
that's
that sometimes.
Maybe that's what Tony meant by his army of bots. He's like, I'm going to have these bots come in and they're going to rip all the limbs off the wrestlers and they're going to get tentacles and springy shoes and be super athletes.
Hey, I mean, we're getting there when you can, predict your super babies. So we're close.
Well, and Scott Allen swearing here saying, where does Darius Martin fit? Or where does Dante Martin fit? Nowhere by himself. And then he says he can't talk in the mic. He can't succeed. I don't know about that, but they flirted with him joining Team Taz. And I saw somebody today, I think it was Chris Muller over on Twitter today, Doc over from BR Sports. He was talking about how, like, right now, Team Taz, like the individual entities in Team Taz, pretty solid. Pretty fire at the moment. And, it's one of those where they've all kind of been pushed a little separately. I mean, Hobbs and Stark are kind of a unit, but like Hook is definitively an Iron Man, like Avenger. Like he has his own thing going on. I think bringing Dante back into that fold right now is not a terrible idea. Make it a 4-man unit. You got Jericho Appreciation Society running around right now. You got what is it? The Undisputed Elite out there at the moment. There would be, I'm interested to see a Hook alongside his brethren fighting for the team. We haven't really seen that angle with Hook in the team. since Hook's been taken off.
Nice faction's the way to go, and it's not really. I mean, the success rate of somebody who can talk on the mic, you can definitely there's definitely a difference. But if you can have terrible mic skills and have great skills, and then have a great storyline, it's kind of the push and who you pair them up with. So that doesn't mean they necessarily can't succeed, but say anybody with Paul Heyman, and you have skill, it's a wrap. You don't need to talk on the mic ever.
Well, yeah. Well, they tried it with Cesaro and Ryback. Remember when Paul Heyman kissed Ryback on the head? It was weird.
Yeah.
It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen. So not always a gear. I mean, even with the best of them, it's not always going to work. But I think Taz has done, I'll be honest. I was kind of coy about the whole Team Taz thing. Taz has never been like, I mean, he's fine on commentary. Never been the most compelling story kind of promo for me personally. But I'll be damned if everybody around him really has been shining recently and doing very well. So method to the madness, I suppose, from Team Taz over there.
There it is. It's possible. I mean, he needs something else. He's doing nothing. So something's better than nothing.
Well, Daniel Garcia, according to the Observer, too much may be going on. He was initially apparently pitched for the Blackpool Combat Club, but then Chris Jericho personally picked him for the Jericho Appreciation Society. Hot commodity, Daniel Garcia.
I mean, if Jericho wants you, then that's the best. I mean, to be partnered up with that's kind of like you're definitely gonna get airtime, so that's always great. And then you can formulate some storyline before and after because there's always gonna be an eventual breakup. So after that, so that I mean, why not? It's Jericho.
I guess this is not doing it for me personally. The Jericho Appreciation Society. I think it was maybe too soon after the Inner Circle, where it just kind of still feels this. It's like it's like the Wolf Pack of the NWO, right?
Mm-hmm.
But not like the original Wolf Pack, like the later version of the Wolf Pack. It just doesn't feel different enough for me quite yet, and I will say that I would probably have preferred Daniel Garcia in Blackpool Combat Club. I think that he fits that mold. I mean, that's like his whole thing. He's Red Death, he's a grappler who's very brutal. I could still see him there. I mean, props to Wheeler Yuta. I mean, he seems to be the one who inherited the best of this whole situation. If Garcia was pulled and Yuta got put in, I just don't know how much I mean, and look, it's giving Garcia a chance to show personality, right? Maybe that's what they're trying to do, is stretch him right now. But dressing like a B-boy from the 90s with that Kangol hat and whatever, like, it just doesn't feel...
You're not feeling it?
I don't know, TK. It's not...
I mean,
I don't know.
Do you think he would have got... See, this is my thing. It's like, when you partner up with Jericho, it's like he has some talent of making everybody that's around him kind of shine a little bit. Whereas with other things, it's like, if you put him somewhere else, will he get lost? And now you just don't remember that he's there.
Are you talking about Jericho, or are you talking about Garcia?
Garcia.
Okay. Because, well, with Jericho, you're saying everybody around him shines more. I don't really know that I would agree with that either. Because, like, I think part of the reason the Inner Circle, like, fell apart was the other people wanted to shine brighter than, being the lackey to Chris Jericho. Guevara wanted to be his own man. Proud Powerful's whole thing was just like, we're tired of, like, just being in the background for you. Jack Swagger, somebody put out a tweet yesterday that was like, can you name somebody who jumped from WWE to AEW who's booked better in WWE? And immediately in my head, I was like, yeah, Jack Swagger. Like, that guy has been a quiet muscle man behind Chris Jericho. I don't know that he shined more. I think he shined way brighter over in WWE. They put the world title on him. They put him in huge main WrestleMania matches, I don't know. I don't know that. I don't know. I think these guys are learning more. I don't know that they're shining more. I think they're learning more being in this situation, Well,
that's the thing. It's like if you could sit under the learning tree, because he's been in the game for what, 30 plus years, maybe about that. You're not going to be in that faction forever. That's just not how wrestling works. So it's just kind of like taking those learning cues. And I'm assuming, and I mean, maybe you could speak to this more than me, that Jericho does kind of behind the curtain actually educate and kind of give pointers and kind of help you become a better wrestler. So, or better wrestler as far as character wise. That's what it seems like because he's Canadian. I feel like all Canadians are nice, but it might not be. That's what I'm hoping for. So,
I think it comes down to preference. I think if he likes you, so.
True.
But that's true of everybody, right? By and large, if they like you, Undertaker come over, hey, Baron Corbin, maybe look like this, right? It's not as cool to look like this or whatever. I don't know what advice Undertaker giving Baron Corbin. One of my favorite interviews with Baron Corbin's like, yeah, Undertaker came over to tell me how to do my entrance and look cooler and all this stuff. And anyway, lastly here, before we get to the mailbag, WrestleNomics and Showbuzz Daily, for what it's worth, also they put out the viewership yesterday for Dynamite, and it was the least watched episode since February 16th. Now, they were head-to-head with the playoffs. The key demo was the lowest since the Revolution Go Home on March 2nd, down 4.8 from last week. 18 to 49 demo was even. Viewership was down 16% from the same week in 2021. The key demo rating, even with the previous year, the 2021 episode did not have NBA competition, so maybe it looks like that probably played a big factor in it as well. But a lot of people point at this, and Bischoff's getting up all in their grill. I saw about how they're flatlining right now. There's no growth at the moment from AEW. Do you think there's anything to that? Or no?
I mean, we have to take into account too that I don't know about Chicago, but in LA in particular, we just got the mask mandate back on. So we're not quite out of the pandemic. I think for a time period, you have to take into account that people are going out. Like, people are not being as affected. Like, people are kind of starting to live their lives, and therefore they might not be watching like right when it comes on. They might be doing other things. Work is picking up, all that stuff. So I think the better numbers would be to compare, when you're comparing those numbers, it's like almost pre-pandemic, during the pandemic, and then in the limbo land of what we are now. So I think I think with those numbers, it's one of those things where you can have a one-off. There's so many different factors with those numbers, and they're not really, I don't know if they can get the answers to those factors.
But I think there's something to the idea that right now they are certainly really banging the drum of their hardcore audience. Like they know the circle in which their fanship lives, and they are just trying to feed that beast as hard as they can. It's tough to say, like, how do you grow your audience? How do you bring in whatever the key more casual fans are? I mean, I think, I could sit here and armchair book all day, but it seems consistent with their booking that they don't really, they really only have like a one-track mind right now. I see so much more violence. I see so much more kind of like, I hate to say like uncomfortable edginess, like some of the stuff like Sammy Guevara saying, I don't give a shit about your dead grandpa, Dan Lambert. Like, yeah, I mean, I get it, you're a heel, but it's it's not something you're gonna have your kid here or your fiance in the room with, and it's gonna go over well, right?
Right.
Does Darby Allin need to line the casket with thumbtacks? Is that necessary to tell the story we're telling here right now?
Right.
I do wonder about the kind of tone they're taking as of late.
So if that's the case, then you think because they're taking a harder edge tone, they're turning away the casual fans, the casual viewers who might have been coming in. Now it's like, well, I can't watch my son or daughter. I can't let my son or daughter watch this. So therefore we all can't watch it because I need to because kids are going to figure out a way. So I need to watch the kids.
I think there's something to it. And like, obviously the barbed wire crown of thorns is like the exclamation point on that statement, right? Like they're just like, we don't care. And this wasn't even like the 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock late night Rampage. That was like the lead into SmackDown late afternoon drive time home episode of Rampage. And they're like, hey, it's Good Friday. Some of you are probably on your way to church. Here's an affront to Christianity. Like, I'm not saying you're driving off everybody, but I certainly don't know that you're bringing more people back in than you're risking putting people away. And even if it's like not that dramatic, there's still a push-pull there. And that's why the growth is limited, right? You're not
right.
There's just little things where I'm just like, I get it. Nobody can tell us what to do. I should be able to smoke cigarettes on TV, but like there's just ways to expand your audience in a tasteful way and still be edgy. And sometimes I just see things right now and it was like, I don't know, guys, do we need to do this?
And then do you think too, because I don't know, for me, when AEW started, like I kind of latched on because of Cody Rhodes, the name attachment with Cody Rhodes. And now that Cody is over at WWE, and he kind of stated, I think we all saw his statement of why he went over there. Do you think there's some fanship that, gravitated to AEW because of him, and now because he's over there, they're actually watching more WWE?
I don't know about that. I think there's maybe some of that, but I think that I hate to say this because Jericho's whole thing is like sports entertainment, but like the purebred old school sports entertainment style that Cody brought to WWE or brought to AEW left with him to WWE. That element left with Cody. And for fans that like that kind of old, slow, big guy, main event style wrestling, there's so much less. And Cody was an influencer backstage with Tony and like, all of that type of stuff, and probably filtering more of his vision of wrestling into it. With Cody gone, I mean, it is 120 miles an hour of some of the craziest shit I've ever seen in wrestling on free TV, So I definitely think, and I think that for fans that came to the table for the kind of wrestling Cody brought, I do think that that fan may leave, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I again, with these numbers, it's just kind of like you take them with a grain of salt. I guess it's up to AEW or whoever put the numbers together to kind of figure out, but there's more behind the numbers. So I guess it's up to AEW to figure out how they're going to expand their target audience. But once you kind of hit that, you're now going to have to bring in more people, because once you hit your target, the target audience is at a certain capacity, then you have to get everybody else. So that's the decision.
Well, and we seem to have tapped a vein here with this Legit Heat Wrestling show saying AEW's goal from the beginning was to bring an alternative to wrestling. Playing by WWE's rules as far as content wouldn't make them any different. And I'm not saying you have to be like WWE. I mean, I think you can present a different product, but it's been pointed out to me too that, like, granted, they're not doing like the constant edits, right, and stuff that like WWE does, where it's like 80 edits in like 5 seconds so you can get a kick over or whatever.
Yeah.
But like the angles and the shooting and the style, the format and structure that AEW uses is the house that WWE built with a different coat of paint. And everything you're putting underneath it, I mean, like Lucha Underground, that's a truly kind of different, authentic, I think, kind of product. AEW is, like WWE's where grandma lives, and then AEW's where the murderer who lives next to grandma lives. Like.
Somebody please cut that out, because that was an awesome hot take. Wow. Okay. All right.
Edgier. Okay, maybe murderer is too much. Maybe Sid Vicious lives next door. Okay, and he's not murdering anybody. But look at Wheeler Yuta shooting blood out his eyeballs. I mean, you tell me that's not craziness, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that was good.
Okay, well, I guess we'll just wrap the news segment there, because where are we going from here? Thank you all so much for tuning in. We got more to go. We're going to talk in the mailbag here about WrestleMania Backlash. So let's get to it here. At Week Daily, that's the account to follow. MCASP here popping. Woo-hoo. That's right, Hausman. Now you get it. Okay, sorry. Blind squirrel finds a nut kind of deal. So today's poll question: what WrestleMania Backlash match you currently most excited about? Results are going to be discussed here. So, like, my question is based off the 4 matches that have been announced for WrestleMania Backlash. About 200 votes here in the last hour. 47.2 go to Cody Rhodes versus Seth Rollins. 25.5 go to RK Bro versus the Usos. 15.5 go to Ronda Rousey versus Charlotte Flair in the I Quit match. And at the very bottom, 11.8% goes to AJ Styles versus Edge. And I will start by saying that was the match I was most excited about going into WrestleMania. And man, coming out of it and going into this, I'm with everybody. It has just been a weird ride for these two. I don't know that I like what's going on with Edge and AJ Styles these days.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Yeah, with Damian Priest, like I can't. I don't know what's going on there either. But kudos to them for getting more time. The first 3 matches, though, I'm excited. I'm excited about all 3 of those matches. Definitely Cody, Cody and Seth. I just like how everything's kind of going with that, and I'm always a big fan of the Usos. RK Bro. I like the vibe. I feel like anything with the Usos. Or New Day, but I also like the new formatted team of RK Bro as well. And then, seeing Ronda, and I know I don't know what the fandom is like for Ronda now in her second time back, but just seeing Ronda in the ring, I'm always a fan of that too.
I think I misjudged the Ronda thing. I think I'm just so personally, emotionally skewed by Ronda because I just don't. I mean, in my heart, and I could be wrong, but she gives off a vibe of I don't want to be here most of the time anymore in WWE. So I feel like for me as somebody who has to be invested in this, it's kind of a turnoff. I'm not huge into Ronda, but I'm not. I mean, little kids. I mean, she gets huge pop every time she's on ESPN and all this stuff. So I think I personally misjudge the Ronda draw. You
should read her bio. Her bios will probably clue you into. I'm always suggesting you to read these bios, but her bio really clues you into why why she kind of might give off that vibe.
Okay, all right. Hey, I'll give it a chance. I got a stack of bios. See these books over here? I've got ECW Press has been sending me bios for years. I've read some of them.
That you have to get on the audiobook life. That's how I get all those books in. Get on the audiobook. Scribe for $9.99. You can get unlimited audiobooks. You can get I usually get 2 in a week.
Okay, I'll look into it. I'll think about it. I'm getting off into the weeds here. I'm gonna just start talking about podcasts, and this is not what this show's about. Back to this poll question here. I think the Rhodes Rollins stuff, man. Just talk about how lightning in a bottle with these two. Great chemistry, right place, right time, right story. The Cody Rhodes succeeding in WWE, how does that affect AEW? Does it incentivize talents that have been to WWE to go back and maybe get the respect they feel they weren't deserved? That's interesting. What does it say to wrestling fans who thought that Cody was booked awfully and they were unhappy and booing this man to look over and now all of a sudden like Cody Rhodes? What kind of a subliminal signal does that send to fans? I think that's something to think about as well. I don't know.
Well, first off, for wrestlers, we already know WWE is going to accept who WWE wants to accept. It's not like you can just go I think Cody's in a very different scenario just because of lineage, and he probably left with it's just kind of there's one thing of leaving with a kind of open door policy, and another one's okay, you never see that wrestler ever again in any type of WWE format. So for the wrestler part, I feel because you get so many different stories from different wrestlers who have been let go from WWE. So that part, I definitely think it might be a little bit confusing to the fans, but the pop that he got when he showed up, and then even when he was on Raw the other day, it was just kind of one of those things where he's here and I'm here for it. And then the chemistry, I think if he had a flat storyline, or if it was just one of those storylines where that happens sometimes with WWE often, where the storyline's just we don't really care. But this storyline, I think anything with Seth, I don't know what I'm saying this allegedly, very jokingly. I don't know what he's smoking, but it's really great because what his character is, I love it. I'm buying into it. It's just a whole different level.
I hope Seth cheats to win, and I hope we get a third rubber match between these two. Hell in a Cell, the pay-per-view after. I just see Cody. He's gonna want to jump off that cell. He's gonna want to do something there, and the fans are here for this feud right now. I think that people often complain when they see something too much in wrestling, but I don't think we're there yet. I think that you can have Rollins nut him behind the ref's back, roll him up, have a hot Cody come out and say, I'm going to murder you, and I'm going to Murder House. I'm taking you to AEW town. We're going to Hell in a Cell, baby.
We're going to Grandma's neighbor. We're going to his house.
Okay. We'll wrap there. Thank you all so much for tuning in. The PW podcast jumping in with just a bunch of gifts. I don't even know what that is, but thanks for jumping in here at the end of the show, man. Especially our Twitch followers out there. We love you guys. I'll be back on Monday here after the weekend. Be talking to Michael Weissman. Remember to support the Wrestling Inc. Daily on all kinds of podcast platforms. SupportWrestlingInc.com. We're on all the socials. Come back here tonight after SmackDown for the Wrestling Inc. podcast. It's a lot like this show, only it's at night, and they talk SmackDown on top of the wrestling. And I want to thank, by the way, our boy Blaze. It's your boy Blaze McCoy. I just like saying that. Thanks for letting me say that to wrap my week up here, Blaze. TK, what do you want to say to wrap up the week here today?
Happy Earth Day. And then also shout out to Dylan Matthews, long time. He's like a clipper. He clips everything. So I hope you do clip that out, Dylan. I hope you do.
Is he going to clip out the comments I made about? Okay,
he
great,
is
wonderful.
So awesome. So shout out to Dylan.
Thanks, Dylan. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, TK, says Dylan here on the screen. Is today Earth Day or is it this weekend?
I thought it was today. I'm seeing all the posts today.
Is it? I haven't seen anything about it. I'm going to be, I don't usually tell people where I'm going to be. It is today. That makes sense. Friday, or this Sunday from 2 to 5, if you play Pokemon Go, I'll be at Maggie Daly Park in Chicago. They're doing a Pokemon Go meetup. We can all catch Pokemon together. And for every person that walks 5 kilometers that day on their Pokemon Go app, Pokemon Go is going to plant a tree. So we're all going to catch Pokemon, and we're going to help Mother Earth, and it's going to be wonderful. So let's have a great Earth Day weekend, everybody. And thank you for reminding me about that, TK. I'll talk to everybody on Monday. Thank you for tuning in. And remember, if you wish this beer. I finished the beer right before the outro. Thank you all. We've done the podcasting. It's very nice. I like all of you very, very much. And remember, if you winked, bing, bing, you did not miss it. Goodbye.